1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Kind of a dreary Sunday morning around here. Kind of unusual for me to say that things are dreary outside. In Colorado, we talk about like, I don't know, 360 days of sunshine a year, so we kind of have a suicide watch if we ever have 3 days of cloudy weather and so on. And it's a little bit cloudy today. It's a little bit dreary outside. I'm a little bit bummed in that I'm pretty much a fair weather motorcycle rider, and I think it might be a little chillier than I care to see for riding outside. I know it's chillier than my wife likes to see for riding, and so I don't know, either that's going to happen, not going to happen. We'll see as the day goes by. Anyway, she's off at dance class right now, and I thought maybe I'd see if I could sneak out a little video. Ran into technical problems last time I tried to do it again. You haven't heard me talk about technical problems in a little bit because I've actually had things working pretty well, but the sound gremlin got me again last time and everything was all crackly and stuff. I thought maybe I'd ruin my microphone by rolling my desk chair over the cable for it. Turns out that really doesn't seem to have been what caused the problem. I think maybe I just had the settings wrong or something. Anyway, hopefully, keep my fingers crossed that this is going to work. So yeah, a couple things. Basically, what I'm looking here to do is make a contest entry for dots and loops. It seems like it's a contest that has gotten a whole bunch of traction. And I think there's two reasons for that. His prize is great that he's offering for it. Certainly there's an incentive to make it that way. But also, he leaves the contest incredibly wide open. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. And there's a guy named Steve Guttenberg. He is someone you're probably familiar with if you're into stereo nerddom and audiophile stuff and so on. Great writer, has a very down-to-earth kind of perspective in that he's perfectly happy to review like a $50 piece of gear, you know, something really cheap. And at the same time, he will talk about a $40,000 piece of gear, you know, and he seems to have equal reverence for both, which I very much appreciate. In fact, he's very adamant that to be an audiophile, you don't have to spend a ton of money, and I really like that because I don't have a ton of money to spend. So he puts out videos on a daily basis, just little tiny ones, which again I very much like, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, something like that, and he'll post some philosophical question about music or recording or something or equipment. He'll do music reviews. I've discovered a lot of great music from his reviews. In fact, one of the albums that I'm going to talk about here was a Steve Guttenberg recommendation. But I want to segue right into talking about his channel in general, which I'll post a link to one specific video he put out last week. And this was a conversation with a guy, I don't know, evidently he's another writer that is primarily into jazz. His name is Ken Micallef. And he has his own YouTube channels, which I'm now subscribed to, and writes, has a blog type of thing, Facebook page, all that kind of stuff that you're supposed to have. But this video that I got such a kick out of was Steve Guttenberg and this Ken Micallef guy going back and forth, and talking about a number of things. I mean, it'd be just like, you know, if I had the privilege of sitting there with Steve Carlson talking about stuff, it seems like, you know, they're not even aware hardly that there's a camera on them. Certainly they're not letting that inhibit what they talk about. And the thing I find really interesting is they talk about kind of the the taboo subject of making fun of some of these fancy record labels we've got, and how, you know, Ken is the one especially comes out and says he plain doesn't think that some of these fancy pressings that we get are at all worth the money, and they talk about why some things sound good, why they don't, specifics of you know what they listen for. Some like Ken, I guess, is a drummer, and he talks about how cymbals are recorded. One thing I think that comes up there that I'm particularly in tune to is how trumpets sound. I think it must be incredibly hard to capture good trumpet sound, and even some of the very best supposed jazz albums and stuff, I don't think have a very good trumpet sound. So it's something I'd thought about for quite a while, but it was kind of an emperor's new clothes kind of thing. I didn't want to say it unless I heard someone else say it, and these guys say it, and I think it's great. It's done in a really entertaining manner, so I'd recommend you check it out. Maybe you'll like Steve's channel in general. Now, the music recommendation I've got comes from NPR Tiny Desk. You guys listen to that? I love it. NPR Tiny Desk. I mean, I don't always like the music they have on there. They've got a very diverse, eclectic sort of music, and it's hit or miss for me. A lot of it is new bands that I've never heard of, but a lot of it are you know, very tried and true old people, and I do mean old people sometimes, that you know, sometimes the music's great, other times it kind of makes me sad because the performances are very pathetic. People don't remember their own words and so on and so forth. So it runs the gamut that way, but the thing that's consistent is that sound quality of NPR Tiny Desk recordings, performances is fantastic. I would love to see a behind the scenes just how they get their sound. Because it's unconventional. They're using shotgun mics for a lot of it, it seems like, and it's great. It's fantastic recordings. So I enjoy them even when I don't enjoy the music that much. But this week they posted a video by three people. I guess they call themselves Ohmme, you know, like the it's spelled more like Ohm's law, but I think of it more like the, you know, the meditation Om kind of thing. So I don't know how they say it. And it's a really interesting mishmash of things because it's primarily two women and then a drummer who's kind of in the background but knows his place and does a fantastic job with what he does. But anyway, it's real obvious that these two women, front people, know their music, and when I went back and read about them, in fact, they are classically trained musicians. But they don't seem to know how to play guitar, and they use them kind of as noisemakers rather than what you and I would think of guitar playing. They do harmonies and they do back and forth as well as individual singing, and they are amazingly spot on. You know, one of the hardest things I think is for two people, especially outside of a family, that can really match inflections and so on. And these two women are fabulous at it. Really, really good. And with what I said about their guitar playing, I don't mean that it's bad by any means, but they you'll just have to listen to it. They use the guitars almost more like noisemakers or percussion type of things than they do, you know, they're not playing any type stuff at all. So check them out. I like them, and I actually think I might be looking for their album. I guess they've been around for a little bit and they have at least one album out. Okay. So that's everything getting up to this contest that Dots and Loops did. First is this, and here we go with the trying to get things in the light and stuff. There we are. Procol Harum Live with the Edmonton, is it Philharmonic? No, just Edmonton Symphonic Orchestra. And this, I I was so excited in high school when this came out because, you know, rock and roll was still not considered as reputable as it is now. It was not considered, you know, what a music that serious musicians made and stuff. And I thought when Procol Harum came out with this album with a symphony orchestra that it was going to change everything, you know, and all of a sudden rock and roll music, which I loved, would be considered legit. So anyway, I was really into this album to start with. I'm still into this album, and I listen to it a lot. But in getting ready for this video, one funny thing that I discovered was, you know, I always thought of Procol Harum as where Robin Trower came from, which, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about Robin Trower next. But I was always kind of, with this album, I was kind of disappointed, going, man, you know, Robin Trower just doesn't bring it the way he usually does, and I wonder what's up with that, you know. And it turns out Robin Trower had left the band by this time, so he was not present in this performance. And all of a sudden, you know, what is it, 40 years later, I go, oh, so that's what I've been hearing all the time, is this is some other guy playing. And it's not that this guy plays badly. He plays actually quite well, but it's Robin Trower, if you're into him, he has got such a huge present kind of sound. I was thinking about who to compare him to, and Leslie West from Mountain is the one that comes up in my mind. It's just kind of, he is there and you know it, and this guy is kind of more, I don't know, not timid, but more typical as far as his place within the mix and so on. They also switched out organ players, I guess. But honestly, I can't tell that. One of the things I like about Procol Harum is they feature a lot of organ, like you know, their big hit, Whiter Shade of Pale, of course, is a lot of organ bass. That song is not on this album, by the way, Whiter Shade of Pale. And I kind of wonder if they did that on purpose, but I couldn't find anything that said that. So anyway, whoever's playing organ on this, he is very good. I couldn't pick him out from the other guy that played on Salty Dog and stuff like that. So that even though that's been a changed part, I can't really tell the difference, but I can definitely tell with the guitar players. Great album. A lot of Procol Harum stuff is kind of based in history. You know, they talk about I don't know, pirate ships and conquistadors and kind of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of kind of a little bit sad tinged music a lot of times. One thing I wasn't able to find either, I'm sure it's got to be available out there somewhere, but I wonder who came up with the orchestra arrangements for it. I'd be really impressed if it was the band themselves. I guess the piano player, not the organ player, but the piano player is kind of the head of the whole band, and I don't know if he has the chops to have come up with the arrangements and so on for orchestra or not, but whoever did does a really good job. It's a really good inner mix of a rock and roll band and an orchestra. It's not like, you know, it's the shoehorn fit where you're trying to get these orchestral players to somehow blend in. Not like that at all. So Robin Trower, this is one of my all-time favorite records. Goes back, I can never do this. There we are, sort of. Bridge of Sighs. Robin Trower is one of my main guys as far as rock and roll guitar players, or, you know, I'd even call him a little bit bluesy, but he's kind of like I started saying with the other one. He's got a really heavy-handed approach to his sound and his notes and so on. He's not a fast player at all, but man, he just brings the energy, and you know, there's so much talk about psych rock these days and so on, And I imagine some people are going to call Robin Trower psych rock. But either they didn't do drugs or they're very loose in their interpretations or whatever. I would not call Robin Trower psychedelic at all. What I would call him is Quaalude rock, if you go back to the days, very downer type oriented. And I don't mean down as far as depressed, but I mean just I can remember days of doing downers back then where I'd just be holding onto the edges of my bed going, oh my God, when is this trip going to end, type of thing. Way different than psychedelics. Not all the, bright colors and woo, everything shimmers like Jimi Hendrix would be or something like that. Anyway, I'm gonna get into my problems with a psychedelic as it's known today at some point in time. I've been saying that for a while, but hopefully I'll get there before the trend is done. Robin Trower is definitely druggy music, and it can still put me in a druggy state even though I've been drug-free relatively for a long, long time. Yeah, it's cool. Check him out. Bridge of Sighs is by far him at his very, very best. The song Bridge of Sighs is great. Two Rolling Stoned is another one. Day of the Eagle is another one. I mean, this is one of those that in my mind, it's a greatest hits album, because practically every song I'm like, yeah, bring it. It's a great one, and I listen to it still a lot of times. Now the other one is, last one I'm going to talk about is relatively new to me. And by that I mean I probably started listening to Cowboy Junkies in the 90s somewhere. They've been around for a long time. And this album, this is the one that Steve Guttenberg turned me on to, Trinity Sessions by Cowboy Junkies. And it's, talking about music types and genres and stuff, there's one I don't hear talked about in the VC too much, but there's something called lo-fi, which, I don't know, to me it sounds like people, recording things off of the AM transistor radio and splicing together cassette tapes or something. It's a very lo-fi approach. Now I would identify Cowboy Junkies on Trinity Sessions as lo-fi, but it's not that. Don't confuse it with that. I don't mean that kind of thing like what I just described. What this sounds like is a band sitting around, their living room or the garage or the basement, and they put some little recorder in the middle of them and said, hey, let's record an album, kind of thing. Is there overdubbing and so on? I don't know. Maybe there is, but it definitely doesn't sound that way. It's got just a little tinge of grunginess to it. Everything is kind of, holding together, and then it's not a little bit, and then it comes back together. I mean, it's like you're in on a jam session. They're not a jam band, but it's a very live sounding recording. The woman's voice, I forget her name right now, she's fantastic. She's always gotten me. They do funny things. They do like Blue Moon. Who is it now? I'm forgetting. Was Blue Moon Elvis? Oh, God. You guys will tell me who it is. But anyway, they do a very classic song named Blue Moon. It's going to bug me. I got to look it up. They do Sweet Jane. They do a Lou Reed song too. I don't know. I don't see where it's going to tell me who did Blue Moon. Hank Williams, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. They do that on here. Anyway, Blue Moon, they do... They change the lyrics just enough so that if you're familiar with the original song, you go, that's not right. Yeah, it's the way that it grabs your attention and stuff. cool record. I really enjoy it. It's one I listen to on walks a lot when I'm taking my dogs and on walks and so on. It's a great headphone walking around type of thing. You know, I guess they also kind of fit with like Mazzy Star and stuff, which I guess that's called psych folk, right, or something, which I don't quite get either. But it's this kind of, you know, almost like lullabies kind of music that is very relaxing and soothing and so on, and I love it. So those are my three entries for the dots and loops thing. Steve Guttenberg, Ken Micallef, Ohmme, you know, check all that stuff out. And that's going to be it for me this week. We'll talk to you later. Everybody have a good one.